Hello, this is the backup video for Thursday, October 1st, 2020, in European history. Was anyone not here on Monday? Or Tuesday? So you all took the quizzes, and okay, so we're all going to be correcting later near the end. Okay. Make sure you have an open notebook in front of you, something to write on, something to write with. And we are in section 4 Renaissance.
Good morning, Coeur d'Alene Charter Academy. This is Ethan Rodeau, your ASB Vice President, here with your morning announcement. Congratulations to Ellie Cook, the October Sunshine Rotary Student of the Month. Ellery was nominated by Ms. Fleming and will be honored at next Tuesday's Rotary Breakfast. Spirit Week starts next Monday. Look out for more information from your ASB representatives about the days and the new daily participation incentives. See any ASB member with questions. Sports announcements. Congratulations to Lady Panthers Soccer and their 6-0 win over St. Marie yesterday. The Lady Panthers will play Lewiston High School next Monday. This Friday, the boys game against Orfino has been canceled. High school cross country will run the Ben Castro Invitational today after school at Kellogg High School. Lady Panthers volleyball. Correction from yesterday. Lady Panthers volleyball will play Priest River today at Holy Family Catholic School at 6 p.m. Congratulations to the middle school cross country team on an outstanding race yesterday at Cherry Hill. The boys JV team placed second overall with top 10 finishes from Briggs Hazard, Caleb Wright, Tucker Rigg, and Declan McMenemy. The girls JV team took first place overall. Libby Montgomery, Brooke Parkinson, and Sierra Shepard all made it to the top 10. The boys varsity team placed second as well with top 10 finishes from Jackson Oswald and Payson Shaw. The girls varsity placed first, beating the second place team by 55 points. Congratulations to Annabelle Carr, Helen Euler, Olivia May, and Zara Munir for their top scores. Middle school volleyball, both the A and B teams will travel up to Priest River today to play the Priest River Warriors. Both teams will start play at 4:30 p.m. The National Junior Honor Society meeting has been rescheduled to next Monday after school in Mrs. Vanos' room to allow both A and B groups to participate. See Mrs. Vanos or Ms. Borisaw with questions. Yearbook needs your involved photos. Did you visit a pumpkin patch, collect some fallen leaves, or get your first pumpkin spice latte? We want photos of any fall activities. Yearbook will choose from all the photos that are submitted, and you can see yours in this year's yearbook. Check out the link in the announcements for the submission info. Any high school student interested in going to Washington, D.C. with Mrs. Nitty, please see or email her as soon as possible. This trip is separate from the 8th grade trip with Mrs. Gleichner, so if you missed your chance last year, Mrs. Nitty has you covered. 8th graders. Mrs. Gleichner has flyers for her trip to Washington, D.C. up at the middle school office if you or your parents want more information. And lastly, Hot Lunch is coming back next week. Keep an eye out for Panda Express on Mondays and Wednesdays, and Domino's Pizza on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Hot Lunch can be ordered at both the middle school and high school offices. All orders must be placed by Study Lab, no exceptions. Thank you for listening. Make sure you guys take the advice of Creed Brat and do a cartwheel, but real casual, like not enough to make a big deal out of it, but knowing that everyone saw it is one stunning, gorgeous cartwheel. Now please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yesterday I offered those people who were here an opportunity to weigh in on the debacle that was the first presidential debate, or maybe you think it was a glorious, wonderful time. Do you have any thoughts on that before we move into Renaissance today? Seeing none, moving on. Renaissance, the rebirth of the ancient knowledge in a Christian context. We covered this yesterday. So why did it happen in North Italy and to a lesser degree in Spain. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16.
What was the question?
Sort of just said it. What reason was there for the Renaissance happening in North Italy and in Spain, rather than anywhere else?
I'm not entirely sure, but maybe it could be because of religious reasons, and maybe there is a stronger religious presence there.
Nope. But it is a thoughtful and reasonable answer, but it is not right. So, we will continue. Covered this yesterday, Miss Hepworth. Or, no, Miss Woodworth.
I'm not sure also, but I would say there were different people ruling those two places, so it's a different thing happening there.
It could be rulers in some cases, but again, as with Miss Hepworth, no, that's not quite what I'm looking for. Does anyone recall from yesterday what the reasons were for North Italy and Spain? Sir?
Was it just a political thing where they just kind of wanted to be more classy almost?
When you're not here, you are expected to watch the lectures and you are expected to do your best to take notes. I spent about 4 or 5 minutes on this yesterday, so I expect you all to be writing it down, since none of you seem to recall it. The more advanced civilization was the Islamic Arab civilization of the Middle East. When you have a more primitive society encounter a more advanced society, there's going to be cross-cultural contact. The points of contact between Islamic Arab civilization and our own were the area of Asia Minor and the Balkans, but that was almost entirely a warlike frontier. There was some cross-cultural contact, but not much. In Spain, there was a warlike frontier also, but unlike the Ottoman Turks against the Christians of the Balkans and of Constantinople, the more advanced society was being conquered by the more primitive. What that means is that the Christian kingdoms of Spain and Portugal and the constituent kingdoms that will become Spain were conquering a more advanced society. So in conquering them intact, they were able to absorb the libraries, universities, healthcare, and other aspects of the more advanced civilization. This led to Spain and Portugal being the most advanced societies and most powerful societies in the 1500s. They were the superpowers of their day. But the most interesting place was North Italy because of trade. Because instead of war, what we have is a willing contact between partners who are mutually profiting from the trade. The Christian traders go from the Middle East to North Italy. Why? Which travel is easier and safer? Land travel or sea travel? Sea, definitely. In those days, sea travel is much easier than land travel. So if you look at a map, you'll see that one of the best places to enter North Europe is from this area west and east of the base of the Italian peninsula. That's why Genoa and Venice became chief trading cities, and it's why North Italy in general was permeated by these more advanced ideas. Cultural contact matters, and it's not always war. Sometimes it involves technology, techniques, and ideas. What sorts of ideas from the ancient world did the Middle East cities have? Was it just Arab and Persian knowledge? Or were there some other things that predate the Christian West that the Arabs had? Seven. 2, 4, 6, 7. You've already answered those, so I'll bounce it over to you, unless you know. You know?
But,
Okay.
They already had.
Sorry?
I was just kind of thinking out loud. But they also bring over different ways to agriculture, or
Well, there was some of that. But what was almost destroyed in Europe during the Dark Ages? What was preserved by monks in monasteries in the Middle Ages?
religion,
Not just religion.
Catholicism.
That's a form of religion. That's okay. Mr. Knife, thank you for trying.
Literature, books were preserved.
Literature and books. And there were many books that were preserved in the Arab libraries that had been lost in the Christian libraries of Europe. And this matters. So there were books by Aristotle and others that the Europeans regained that they had lost by this cross-cultural contact. Okay. You have new ideas, not because they're entirely new, but because you have them reintroduced into a Christian context. For example, the pragmatic ideas of Machiavelli. We talked about that yesterday. And finally, the Middle Ages comes to an end either with the Reconquista in Spain, ending in 1492, or the destruction of the Christian city of Constantinople and its conversion into an Islamic city in 1453. But the most likely end of Middle Ages event is Miss Birmingham. I do kind of expect you to try to answer, especially since it's on the board right in front of you, and I listed the other two. See you in the after class. Is the discovery of America in 1492 by Christopher Columbus. So, what we have is the Middle Ages, which is the time when Christian society and civilization rises up, joining its previous self, the earlier iteration of Western civilization that is Greco-Roman and pagan. So, I then shifted over to geography. I will mention these again, though you were supposed to follow them at home. Hopefully you have your note packs out to the page that has the map. If you don't, always have your note pack open, because that is where you will often find information and answers that I am referencing in the lecture. It is that. Excellent. Can I borrow yours for a moment, please? Thank you. This page out. And whenever you're taking notes, you want this page, or you want your note pack out, along with any physical notes that you are taking. Good. Thank you. So, in Italy, the central area where the Pope reigns from the city of Rome is the Papal State. North of the Papal State is Tuscany. Tuscany is the heart of the Renaissance. Though it is not itself one of the trading ports of Genoa and Venice, it for some reason just attracts some of the most advanced of the new ideas that come out of the Islamic Arab world. And it is a place that just receives those new ideas with relish and enthusiasm. The cities of Siena, which is largely preserved from its Renaissance form. If you ever get a chance to go to Italy, try to see Siena. If you go during, I think it's the late summer, you'll get to see a horse race in the center of town that is one of the most brutal spectacles, but it also is authentically Renaissance. Also, the city of Florence is in Tuscany. And Florence, as you have read and as you will see, is very important to the Renaissance. South of Rome is the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies, which has the island of Sicily, the Naples area of Italy, and Sardinia. To the west of Italy Along the base of its peninsula is the coastal strip controlled by the city of Genoa, which is where salami comes from, at least Genoa salami, and which is where Christopher Columbus comes from. Along the eastern haunch of the Italian peninsula's base is Venetia, and Venetia is the territory controlled by the city of Venice. And to the west of Venetia, in the foothills of the Alps in the central Po Valley, is Lombardy. Lombardy. So those are regions that you'll need to know. In terms of water, you will be expected to know the following seas. And I'm going quickly because, again, we covered these in class yesterday. The Ligurian Sea, which is to the east of Corsica, west of Tuscany, and south of Genoa. Liguran, Ligurian Sea. The sea to the west of southern Italy, between Naples and Corsica and Sicily, is the Tyrrhenian Sea. Tyrrhenian, Tyrrhenian Sea. Tyrrhenian, Tyrrhenian Sea. Behind Italy, to the east of Italy, is the Adriatic Sea, Adratic, Adriatic. And finally, you have the Mediterranean Sea, which is the broad name for the maritime region that separates Europe from northern Africa. The Mediterranean Sea, sea in the middle of the land. Any questions on those geographical features, where they are in relation to each other? Okay, we'll do a little more lecture and then we'll go to the late medieval European map. Broad characteristics of the Renaissance. First off, the Black Death brings about the Renaissance. The fact that the plague kills between a third and half of all Europeans while leaving most of the property of Europe intact means that the survivors mathematically are going to have a chance at getting more property. Also, in the immediate aftermath of the plague, the labor of craftsmen and peasants becomes much more valuable. Before the plague, there was enough population so that if the peasants and the craftsmen and the lower orders in general didn't play along, the upper class didn't have any problem replacing them. But after the plague, every farmer's labor is valuable because there aren't enough. Yes, the entire population of Europe has shrunk, but you need people to grow the food. And in a pre-industrial society, you need more people than you might expect. Today, do any of you have any notion of about what percentage of the American population is engaged in food production today? Yeah.
Isn't it like 30% or something?
That's an excellent guess, but it's actually way high. Believe it or not, about 5%. About 5% are full-time farmers and ranchers and other things. And do you know what the farmers of America feed? Do they just feed us? American farmers feed China. We feed much of the rest of the world. We are blessed by incredible farmland, and we use some of the most advanced industrial farming methods in the world. Those people who want to go back to purely organic farming either forget or neglect the reality that purely organic farming, pre-industrial style farming, can't support anything like the population we have globally. Globally, we have over 6 billion people. That's 6,000 million people. Pre-industrial farming techniques at best could support a global population of about 1 billion. Without modern farming, we would have megadeath on a scale that even a medium-sized nuclear war probably wouldn't bring. But that's with modern industrial farming techniques. In these pre-industrial days, you need from 70 to 95% of your population producing food for the rest. If you don't have that, people starve. We were talking about the starving times in the late Middle Ages. So the Black Death increases the amount of liquid capital that the survivors have. Liquid capital is money that they are able to invest. One of the consequences of bringing this pagan notion of Greek excellence, the pagan notion of Roman duty, the pagan notion of the duty and glory of the individual to stand out, there is a side of Christianity, despite the fact that Christ dealt with individuals and that Jewish and Christian and Islamic belief all absolutely stress that every single one of us has an immortal soul in the image of God that's going to live forever. We still are, in some senses, in some variants of Christian faith, told to be so humble that we almost sacrifice our individual selves on the altar of worship. The ancients had a strong sense that there is something glorious in the individual. In Athens, the individual was celebrated to the extent of giving them actual authority and sovereignty over the state during the democracy. In Rome, you have a similar thing where the people are king. But each individual Roman took their dignitas, gravitas, auctoritas, and pietas so seriously that as an individual they were fully committed. This notion of an extremely vibrant individualism returns to European society and ultimately leads to the American Republic and to our freedom. The notion that we matter as individuals, not just as members of our family, not just as children of Christ, but that we in this life are given the opportunity to do wondrous and glorious and worthwhile things, that comes strongly from Greece and Rome. And what it leads to in the Renaissance, which you would call Renaissance because you're normal people and you speak normal English, I just use the pretentious thing because I think it's fun, is humanism. Humanism. Humanism is the notion that the proper study of man is man. Humanism is the notion that the proper study of man is man. So a humanist would not nearly be so interested in theology, which is the study of the divine aspect through scriptures and revelations and church doctrine. A humanist would also not be so interested in what's called natural philosophy at that time, what we would call science, the science of the physical world. Now, there are humanists who were both theologians and natural philosophers / scientists. But primarily, the humanist idea is to discover, understand, and bring out that which is amazing inside the human condition. To bring out the best in the individual and to bring out the best in society by bringing out the best in the individual. Each individual was tasked to do something worthwhile. And if they rose to that, if they tried to fulfill their potential, then they had something of this old Greek concept of excellence, of personal best. Then they had this old Roman concept of doing your civic duty by being fully committed. And it also was a fulfillment of the Christian concept of loving God with your whole heart, your whole mind, and your whole soul. Again and again in the epistles, the letters after the Gospels that are part of the New Testament, there are calls for people to think as hard as they can about life. Not just to follow faith dumbly, but to actually try to bring out the best talents that God gave you for the greater good. So, humanism in the Renaissance sense is the study of human beings as individuals, biography, the study of human beings in society, that's politics, the study of human beings in the past, that's history, and the study of what we think and produce and do, and that's basically art, literature, philosophy. So Renaissance humanism focuses much less on what God wants of us and much more on what and who we actually are and the sorts of dreams that we have. One of the things that the Renaissance does is it does spark this artistic emphasis. And the church also is in a phase where it is trying to unify people by an appreciation of the glory of God. And in both cases, that involves art. So we get the Ninja Turtles, Donatello, Raphael, Michelangelo, Leonardo, as examples of Renaissance art. But what is it about their art that stands out, that we consider classic, that echoes through the ages? We will be exploring that in much more detail. The final grand theme of the Renaissance is what I call in the notes the reemergence or the emergence of the individual. But another way of saying that is the Renaissance man. And that's a term you should know. The Renaissance man is an individual that has Catholic tastes. And by that, I don't mean Roman Catholic religion. The word Catholic means universal. So literally, the Roman Catholic Church is the Roman Universal Church. If you have Catholic tastes in music, it doesn't mean you just like Gregorian chants. It means that you like maybe country and rap and rock and opera and the music that goes with ballet. You like all of it. Yes, please, give me more. What kind of music do you like? Yes, all of it. Catholic tastes. So a Renaissance man, like Leonardo da Vinci, who is the classic example of this, is somebody who, yes, he's an artist, but he's also an engineer and an inventor. He's somebody who exhumes corpses and studies the human body like a healer. His notebooks are filled with descriptions and drawings of musculature, of eyes, of organs, of how the human body is put together. He has an interest in astronomy. He has an interest in everything. Do you know what this school that we're in, this type of education that we have, that I'm engaged in trying to teach, you're engaged in hopefully trying to learn? What this system, which is rooted in classical education, is designed to do is to titillate you and seduce you with the possibilities of wonder that exist in discovering about all sorts of things. So you learn a little art, hopefully enough to appreciate beautiful art when you see it, but maybe enough to make you want to make your own art. You listen to music, but maybe with Mr. Harrison's help, you learn to make music. English isn't just about reading Beowulf. It's about learning how to communicate. Because maybe you have a story to tell. You wouldn't be the first charter graduate to become an accomplished, successful author. Maybe there's something in history that might inspire you to go into politics or to do something for your country, or at the very least, to appreciate this society that has taken so long to build and what it contains. Math is the language of the universe, a language I don't speak. So if you're good at math, congratulations, because you speak the language of the universe better than I do. And science is the application of that language, according to Aristotle's philosophy of observation, to study natural phenomena and theorize about their meaning. Wonder. Wonder is what we are in the business of. And if you are wise, you will not allow wonder to die in you because of some cynical adolescent notion of cool. I see too many dead people walking around me. Dead people who are my age, and quite a few of them. And some who are your age. And that's a tragedy. And I'm not talking about the ghosts. I'm talking about people who walk around, who talk, who seem to be alive, but whose souls have been so battered and beaten and overstimmed, and they're done. That simple smile that a child is capable of when they see a puppy or a kitten playing, when they look at a dawn and notice it for the first time. The sense of wow. That's an innocence that you should keep in you, always. That's an innocence that I have seen in the healthiest old people I've ever known. They still have wonder, and it fills their life with meaning. Don't let it die, and understand that as ham-fisted as we may be at trying to apply this invitation to each of you to discover and feel wonder and get curious about the world, as bad as we may actually try to pull it off, what we're trying to do is to get you in your own way to be a Renaissance person, to be somebody who has big dreams, who is not going to conform because it's their only choice, but who is going to look at the world not as a series of threats that you have to negotiate, but as a series of opportunities that you can seize. And if you have a sense of joy and wonder in the learning and discovery, you can do it. And the Renaissance is an example of what that spirit bubbling up can do, not just to individuals, but to a society. It can awaken wonderful things in society. Same thing happened in Pericles' Athens. In any golden age, you have this bubbling froth of creativity that inspires joy and wonder. And it's the antithesis of everything that's wrong with this country right now. It is a sense of wonder applied to life, and that's joy. Anyway, so that's what's coming. Now, in terms of Europe, if you look at your Europe map, talk about the antithesis of joy, learning geography. Actually, geography can be fun if you have a certain way of looking at it. So I'm going to start here on the very western edge of Europe and work my way eastward. And in your notes, you will see a list of some items there, but I want you to know where they are because, you will be tested. So on the very western edge of the Iberian Peninsula is Portugal. Portugal, Portugal. And Portugal still exists. It is still its own little independent country. And Brazil is Portugal's great accomplishment, its largest colony. In the center here, you have Castile. Castile is C-A-S-T-I-L-E. And Castile is the heart of old Spain, Castile. To the south of Castile, you have Granada. Granada is the last Muslim kingdom in Spain. This is late medieval Europe, so it's before the full conquest. Granada, G-R-A-N-A-D-A, last Islamic kingdom. Up here, you've got a little dot called Navarre, N-A-V-A-R-R-E. And Navarre is its own region inhabited by the Basques. The Basques are a pre-Indo-European language group society that still exists. And probably the most famous Basque cultural accretion, actually there are two. There's the corrida, which is the bullfight, which until fairly recent decades was the national sport of Spain, and many of the Spanish-speaking countries it established. But there's also the annual running of the bulls in Pamplona, which is the capital of Navarre. And what you have are a bunch of bulls gathered in a town square and sort of irritated. And then, at once, they open the gates and the bulls charge. And there are a group of people who run away from them. And the idea is to stay in front of the bulls as long as you can to prove your machismo or your guts. And women do it too, so it's not just machismo. Eventually, you want to dive out of the road, over a barrier into the arms of the crowd that's watching amazedly. What you don't want is to be gored by a bull and then trampled by the stampede, which does happen. It's a blood sport. So is the corrida. And these deal with pre-Indo-European times. They're sort of an echo of that. And here is the country of Aragon. Aragon is not Aragon, the dragon. It's not Aragorn, the Dunedain. It is the area around Barcelona. It's what's going to be eastern Spain. It includes Catalonia, which is a different cultural region. So we've got Portugal, Granada, Castile, Aragon, and Navarre. And I think what I'm going to do is leave it there and then go into the correcting of the quizzes so that we have enough time. So for those of you who are watching on video, thank you. Come again.